Yeah. Okay, so welcome tonight. This is our 15th month doing this. I must be starting to get good at it, figuring it out. And tonight, because July 4th is impending and because it's the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding, whoopee, there's bound to be a lot of celebrations. And with the celebrations will come a lot of fireworks, probably starting as early as next week with those people that are eager to to create explosions. We're going to talk about we did an earlier talk before um, uh, last year. One of the first talks we actually did was on anxiety. So I borrowed some slides and updated them, and then I'm doing some specific, which is about anxiety in general. And certainly, if you have an animal who has anxiety in general, and we have that layered on top of that, the 250th anniversary July 4th celebration, it's going to be even worse. So then I'll put in some July 4th suggestions that hopefully will be helpful to you. And then I want to share with you the trip I took. I don't get to go away very often, kind of chained to this desk, but went with a bunch of other herbalist vets to Vermont, where we did a bunch of herb walks and visited an herbal sanctuary. I got some photos. I'll kind of share that with you. I think it's pretty cool. I hope it's not too boring. I think, with a lot what's going on online, presenters are sharing more of their personal lives, and I've been a pretty private person, and not really sharing personal stuff. So kind of I'm starting to open up. And then, like I said, I wanted to kind of complete the several series that we've been doing on diet preparation by showing you actually how I do it with Ollie, specifically for his weight loss, because his weight really affects his mobility. He's had problems his whole life. We'll talk about we'll remind you of what great resources we have, because we hope that you'll spend a little money with us, to kind of support us. And then we'll go into the Q&A. And again, as I said, we will not stop until we drop. We'll answer every single question. Oh, and I didn't change that. But anyway, so tonight is not lumps and bumps and home prepared diets. It will be as I just mentioned. And we'll, yeah, that was a mistake. Sorry about that. But hey, I can actually change that right here. Okay. So housekeeping information. We do have some email questions, but please feel free if questions come up, especially with some of the other material, to drop it into the chat and we will get to those as well. And like I said, we'll answer them all no matter how long it takes. If there are several questions which are all on the similar topic, we'll do our best. And please remember that although I really want to do my best giving you the best answers I can, this really is an educational event, not so much one in which I can give direct medical advice for your individual animal. Not really allowed to do that according to ethics and everything else. And at the same time, don't really want to do that because I need to know more about your animal. You certainly are free to email me at questions at wellpethelp.com, and I think we've got that peppered throughout the website, the webinar. And I'll work on answering your questions directly in a more private and personal fashion. Do my best. I get a lot of questions and try to do my best to get to them as soon as I can, especially if they're serious about crises. But I'm not your regular vet, so I'm just trying to be the best kind of additional information I can do for you to help your pet's health improve, especially if it's not doing that well. Um, like I said, we're doing these the fourth Thursday of each month. I should have known that when there wasn't nothing scheduled, and we're recording them live. We're also going to share with you, they'll ultimately on our YouTube channel, we'll also share with you a PDF of these exact slides so you can review them. We're also going to share with you a PDF handout that has the slides and then has lines next to them. So why does that keep coming up? So you know, this is what I want to hide. So you can go back over the recording if you wanted to catch some of the things that are most appropriate to you. Written a great book. There's a mushroom for that. It's kind of the reference text. It's a good book to have. If you haven't gotten it, you can order it through this particular link. And if you send us a receipt, we'll give you a nice discount coupon of 25% for a couple of times. And, if you have suggestions about other topics we can present, or if you'd like us to do this more frequently, or if you're open to us charging a subscription fee, which would be quite small, but nonetheless, would be helpful to defray some of the expenses involved, let us know. Let us know your thoughts. We're certainly open to listen to them. Okay, so starting with anxiety versus fearfulness, because anxiety is more a generalized condition that comes, is like daily, sometimes a little bit greater, sometimes a little less, and we sometimes call it hyperreactivity, that sort of stuff. Fearfulness is really, and anxiety is oftentimes more fearfulness around something unknown as compared to fearfulness which could be of something known or something like thunder or whatever. So and we discussed before different types of body language that might clue you in to whether your dog is anxious or not. Ollie pants a lot, and I think it's a sign of his anxiety, but there's a couple of other reasons why he might also be panting a lot. For one, he kind of runs hot, so it gets warm, so I think that causes him to pant. And I think he also has some a certain level of painfulness. As much as I try to keep that under control, panting also can be a sign of pain. So you'll get these notes, and I think these are good things to have to reference, that can be helpful to you. And some of the places they've come from, like the SPCA, can be useful references for you as well. So if your animal is generally anxious for things that aren't really there. You want to rule out medical causes. We know that early epilepsy oftentimes is associated with behavior changes. There can be metabolic diseases like Cushing's or diabetes or metabolic syndrome, which could also be a factor. And cancer could also be a factor, especially, brain cancer can certainly create behavior changes. I'm a veterinarian. I think we have some use out there in pet health. And so, that's what your veterinarian is for, is to help you with those things. And then, when we're actually looking at what can we do about anxiety, behaviorists like to look at what are the cues that trigger the anxiety. Like if you have separation anxiety, when you go get your coat, when you get those keys, when you put your shoes on. Ollie knows, Ollie, this is really frustrating. This keeps coming up. Ollie knows I put my cap on, I put my sunglasses on, I put my shoes on, put my pants on, whatever it is. He knows we're going for a walk, or I'm leaving him behind. And then he gives me that look that makes me feel guilty about leaving him behind. So once we know what the cues are, oftentimes we can alter their reaction, their separation anxiety, let's say, by changing the cues, by not presenting them with those. That's a good thing. And I have a good behaviorist group I'm working with now that if you'd like a reference to them, they're out in California, but they do a lot of online stuff. And I think that it's worthwhile to talk to some professionals who have a lot of experience and know kind of how to look at things in that perspective that we don't see. I'm pretty good with it, but I'm not, I don't do it every day. And then once we figure those triggers, then we try to figure out how we can desensitize the patient to them. Some people say that dogs with thunder phobia, they respond when they play, recordings of thunder at a very, very low level and gradually increase that over time as a way of desensitizing them. And so those are things that really I think working with a behaviorist is a good idea and well worth the money, especially if your dog is destructive when they're anxious as well, because that destruction can be quite costly, and sometimes the destruction might be physical um, to your property, but could also be pooping or peeing and just maybe creating anxiety in you because of their whining or their panting or their behavior. Medications can be helpful, and they are, I'm sure, helpful in many. I tend to see the ones where medication doesn't work, so I kind of have a skewed perspective, on medication that seems like it doesn't really work that well. But I think it's only because I'm seeing the worst cases there. I think supplements can be helpful, but they're not a magic bullet, and they really need to be applied daily, and you really need to combine them as well as pharmaceuticals and medications with behavioral retraining. Those are very important things. Um, and one general rule is you don't punish bad behavior. If they peed in the house or pooped or whatever, especially if you don't catch them in the act, they have no idea why you're angry with them, and they don't really get the anger as being related to their action. So what's better off is if you can catch them in the act or of doing whatever they're doing, is to distract them from that and then reward them when they do the right thing. So rewards and positive reinforcement is much, much stronger than negative reinforcement and punishment. So figure out how that can work for your pet in terms of retraining some bad behaviors. A better word would be inappropriate behaviors than bad, because there's really no such thing as a bad behavior. Diet can help. We know that certain diets, especially junk food diets like kibble that are overly processed, can create inflammation, can create behavior changes. We see that in kids, eating a lot of sugar on Halloween and those types of things. So the same thing holds true for our pets as well. There are, and acupuncture can be helpful, just kind of changing things. It's not magic, herbs could be helpful, but they're not magic. This pulsed electromagnetic device, I have a picture of it later, the Assisi loop, they actually have it going around the head. They've got studies that show it works. So there's lots of things, and probably no one single thing can work. It depends on your critter and kind of what's your budget and what they're accepting of and then you can layer them on and find out maybe the combination that works best. Yeah, okay. And so what kind of interventions are there? Well, we have these pheromone products. These are products that have these instinctual smells like cats and dogs have. Oftentimes, we use them in multi-cat or multi-dog households where you have these adverse social interactions, peeing or urinating or fighting, and spraying these pheromones around the house makes the animal feel like they live there because oftentimes these fights are over territory. More commonly in cats over territory than with dogs. Um, Cannabinoids, cannabis, the CBD, CBG, CBN, even THC, although THC tends to stimulate more of an anxiety. Cannabinoids can be very helpful. And in the heyday of CBD, everybody thought that CBD and cannabinoids could cure everything. They could be helpful for the right animal, and it's always worthwhile trying. We have a good one that I've used that has both CBD and CBG, which has good calming behavior and has no THC in it. Mushrooms can also be helpful, and I guess I'm the mushroom guy now. Lion's mane, you're hearing a lot about, for cognitive health, but also can help with anxiety. But it's not a magic bullet. It's the sort of thing you want to get on board and keep on board because it'll kind of lower the level. And I have found combinations of mushrooms like lion's mane with CBD to be very synergistic. Reishi is a bitter mushroom, but if it's taken in capsules or in some of the soft chews where I've created relax formula, reishi is also known to be calming. It's used by Zen masters as a meditation aid. I know some people take reishi before bed because it helps them sleep, but it's not a magic bullet and needs to be given on a daily basis in order to build up. Another mushroom we haven't spoken much about is tremella, which has similar properties, maybe not quite as strong as the lion's mane. Golden oyster is a great source of ergothioneine, which is a specialized antioxidant that also can have an effect on behavior and cognition. We have quite a bit of ergothioneine in lion's mane, so oftentimes just using more lion's mane is a good solution there. Supplements like tryptophan, tryptophan is a great supplement because it stimulates serotonin in the brain, and the serotonin is the relaxation neurotransmitter. Um, in fact, when there was a problem with the manufacturing of tryptophan, and people were using it for depression and psychiatric diseases, that was when we started to see the rise of these psychiatric pharmaceuticals. I have tryptophan in some of my formulas. I have it combined with theanine. Theanine is what gives green tea its zen. It's amino acid in green tea. It's why green tea doesn't buzz you up, like coffee does. And then there's calming herbs like chamomile and lemon balm and um, passion flower and and others like that. And those can be very helpful. I have those in my Relax Mushroom Chews. And people say drink a cup of milk at night, and the reason is there's a protein in milk called alpha casizepine, which also has been shown to be calming, and you can find in some pet supplements, online. I don't have any products that I've used that with yet. Microbiome support. Oftentimes, we're now learning so much more about the microbiome, and next month we're going to start talking about the microbiome. And it's known that when you have an anxious animal and you do a what's called a fecal transplant in them, and we'll talk about that next month, with feces of a dog who's calm, it will calm that dog down. So it may be a solution for some of these dogs who are generally anxious, not necessarily a way of preventing a reaction to July 4th fireworks. But we'll talk more about that next month. It's a fascinating topic. It's something that we should all learn more about, and we'll be offering some microbiome friendly products shortly as well. Okay, and essential oils. Now, we always think about lavender. People have pillows and eye things to help them sleep with lavender, and lavender is very calming. It has a terpene in it called linalool, which we also can find in CBD and in cannabis. And it has very, very calming effects, even has been studied to have a benefit for people with epilepsy. But I found years ago, this was suggested to me by a client, and I've learned so much from my clients, and she learned about it from her chiropractor in Albuquerque, that peppermint oil for dogs is actually even more calming than lavender. And so I used to keep a little bottle of peppermint essential oil in my clinic, and I'd put some in the palm of my hand, and I'd rub the pads of their front feet in that, and it wasn't caustic or anything. And the heat of the pad causes like a diffuser action. The aromatherapy, the peppermint just kind of goes up to their nose. They start sniffing it, and it calms them. So combinations of these are probably the best way. I missed Thunder Shirt for dogs. And Thunder Shirts are like when we swaddle babies in blankets. It's a calming thing. And Thunder Shirts are the same thing. It's kind of tightly fitting. It's like, I think, a microfiber type of garment. And it kind of just holds the dog like this. And some dogs respond really well. We tried it with our dear old dog, Violet, who was a little bit hyper, but she was a wired hair English Springer. And she didn't like it. To her, it kind of freaked her out to be constrained like that. Chamomile is good as well. And with the essential oils, you can just put it in your hand and kind of pet them. Apparently, it absorbs through their hair follicles. Oftentimes, it's best to dilute the essential oil, a couple of drops, and maybe a teaspoon or two of a nice oil like olive oil. You can get a diffuser in the room and kind of diffuse it, and that can help to create a nice calming effect. Even put a few drops in water in their water bowl, not a lot, just a few, because it's very essential oils are very, very potent. We have some from doTERRA on our website. They're widely available, and the ones from doTERRA are very, very high quality, which is why they're so expensive. And maybe your budget would prefer to get one at your grocery store, at your local herb shop, or something like that. They're and I think for occasional use, it doesn't really matter that much. And I hope the veterinary expert on aromatherapy doesn't hear me say that. And then this is what I was mentioning, the targeted pulsed electromagnetic force. And this is a electromagnetic wave, and it has like a pulsation of about 8 hertz. And the cells of our body pulsated about, no, I'm sorry, it has a pulsation of 10 hertz, and the cells of our body pulsated about 8 hertz. And they found that, and I use one of these myself, it's actually for pets, but I use it for my hands, which have some pain, and my shoulders. And I'm getting to be an old guy, I've got all kinds of joints that are painful. But they found that when they put it around the head of these dogs, and maybe they changed the frequency a little bit, it was actually they actually have objective studies that show it has a calming effect as well. Probably not sufficient to deal with the fireworks, but something good for your anxious dog. All right. Um, so specifically with July 4th, one, start early. Don't start the interventions with whatever these prior suggestions I made, when the fireworks get started, because it's almost too late. With pain, we talk about with pain problems and pain meds, we always talk about trying to start the pain meds early before the pain begins to start. Because once the pain gets started and once the anxiety gets started, there's a condition we call wind up, which means it just gets worse and worse. And that makes it a lot harder to medicate with a pharmaceutical or with a supplement or with one of those coils, one of those PEMF coils. So start early, start now. What is July 4th is pretty soon. So, I would start as soon as you could, and I wouldn't start with a really high level. I would get kind of a lower maintenance level going than whatever your choice might be of your interventions that we've mentioned there. And I'll show you some of the things that I've found to be most effective. Um, and so, and especially if your dog's already anxious, this should be an ongoing process. And then as we get closer to where we're going to start having fireworks or where there's just one or two, then that's where you want to ramp up the dosage. Sometimes a higher dosage is better than the maintenance dosage. And in the case, and we're not doing it for a really long time, we're just doing it situationally for the fireworks of July 4th. Now, I have found that the relaxed chews that we have, these are mushroom chews that have lion's mane and reishi in them, and they've got tryptophan and theanine and taurine and camel or lemon balm and passion flower and now I'm forgetting the other ingredients, but a good combination of calming herbs and amino acids that are calming and mushrooms. And I have found that when you combine this with my silver bullet or my sterling silver or my silver dog chews, which are now will now be back in stock next week sometime, or the RX Vitamins Hemp RX, which is a formula that I also designed, and the Forte, which I also designed, and the Hemp RX chews. The combination of CBD with the ingredients in the RX chews is really helps a lot in terms of calming. I've even been able to send dogs on airplanes with trips as far as Hawaii with just the combination of those two, where trazodone totally freaked the dog out. So think about that. Now, lion's mane itself as an individual is not as strong, but it's a good idea to get that on board because it really stimulates all these neurotransmitters that help with calming. We've got a new product that has the lion's mane in a powder form with krill meal. And krill meal has a lot of these fish oil fatty acids, these omega-3s, which also have a beneficial effect on the nervous system. So, those are all choices. And if you have specific questions, reach out to me by email and give me your specifics, and I'll do my best to help you with that. Okay, first part done. That wasn't too bad. Let me take a little sip of water. Any questions on that? We could take questions right now. Raise your hand. All right. So I belong to an organization called the Veterinary Botanical Medical Association. You can find them online there. It's a neat website, a lot of cool stuff. And I was the founder, but I was a president of this for a couple of years. And now I'm just a happy member. And every other year, we do a domestic, what they call an eco tour. 2 years ago, we went to the Eugene Mushroom Festival and stayed for a couple of days at a hot springs lodge up in the mountains where it was raining all the time. And all 20 of us just wandered the woods together identifying mushrooms. And we found a bunch of edible ones. We had a big feast. It was a lot of fun. It's good fellowship for holistic veterinarians. We learn a lot. It's some of it's kind of spiritual and metaphysical. I came back totally energized. So this year we went to Vermont to an herbal sanctuary there and did a few other things. And I just want to share that with you. I don't have like a video type of thing. I just have still shots that I'll talk about. But anyway, we were in Vermont. We were staying at Groton State Park. This is the line that we're very far north. This is Canada, north of this red line. And we stayed there at the park on this lodge called Seon Ranch, and you can see a picture of it here. Is that large? I wonder if I enlarge it, what happens then? No, that doesn't work. Never mind. Okay, I should have made a video. And here you can see over here, you can see these are all the veterinarians, and just outside the door there were some really beautiful plants. And so we were starting our herb walk. Everybody's taking notes, and we have a couple of herbal experts describing what that plant was and what its medicinal uses were. Beautiful lake next to this lodge and this ranch there. Here we have an expert on trees giving us talk to us about trees. I wonder if this. I think this is a. No, I'm sorry. Okay, not getting it right. Um, Okay, never mind. I was really interested in looking for mushrooms because here in dry Colorado we just haven't got very many mushrooms growing, and so I was just in heaven there. This is a birch polypore, grows on birch trees. They had a painted turtle, swallowtail butterflies. It was really a great time, and everything's so green and lush. Although right now in Colorado things are green and lush too. Generally, and we have a bit of a drought going on for years, and things generally are kind of dry and brown. And then we went to visit a botanical farm hillside where they grow medicinal herbs. And here you can see how they're doing it. They water them. They're very water conscious using this drip irrigation system. They grow a bunch of different ones. And then afterwards, we went into their production facility, which is very clean. And we made salves, and we made sachets, and we also made oil infusion, which I brought home. We had choices of different herbs, and it was just a lot of fun, a lot of hands-on stuff for the veterinarians, and good time there. And I plan on actually, they got a website. I plan on ordering herbs from them for myself because now I see where they're grown. I see what kind of care and love is put into these herbs. And I know the people personally. I sent them a copy of my book and sent them a couple of samples of some of the mushroom products I'd made because they have a dog and a cat, and I thought they would enjoy those products. Same products we have on our website. Then coming back from there, we stopped at this maple farm, and it's called Silloway Maple, and they've been doing maple since the 1930s. And this is from their website. You can see the old stuff here, the old sugar shack, and collecting the maple syrup the old way. Now they have like literally 150 miles of this tubing that connects all their maple trees. And this tubing, I'd never seen this before. Maybe this is old hat to many of you, but the maple syrup then runs into these big silos. Incredible how they do it. It's a big operation, beautiful stainless steel silos. And then these silos go down here, and this is a reverse osmosis device. And so the maple sap itself is only like 2% sugar. And it's tree sugar, which means it's a tree sugar called xylose. And of all the sugars that are out there, it has the best glycemic index. It's a lot like agave from cactus. And so they concentrate the sap, and by removing the water through reverse osmosis, they actually recycle that water, and then they take what's the more concentrated sap and water reduced, and they put it through this steam device that further removes the water and concentrates it, and then it goes into a bottling area in the same facility. And they had this beautiful shop here. This whole wall is just filled with little bottles of samples of all their little syrups. They had light and dark syrup and amber syrup. They had candy. They had maple butter. It was really a very cool operation. And today I was worried, but today I bought stuff and I had them ship it to me because I didn't have enough room on my luggage on the plane. And today I just got the package. I got 2 quarts of maple syrup and amber and an extra dark. And then I got this maple butter to kind of put on my bagels or whatever. So I'm excited. All right, so then we were just driving to the next place, and Vermont's really quaint, and this is just a typical Vermont house. I think it was really cool. These big old roosters here, and then we stopped. These are the old rundown tractors in the field, and look at these are like skeletons, like I guess like Halloween type plastic skeletons with flowers on them. And then there was the floating bridge, and this is kind of a panorama view of it, which went over this lake. So we went on that. Some of our braver vets went swimming, and there was looked like a church, but it had this plaque on it that said "Ye Old Fork Shop 1815." I mean, there's some real history there on the East Coast. Then we went to Sage Mountain Botanical Sanctuary, and maybe you have heard about Rosemary Gladstar. She's a one of the prominent herbalists in the country. She's got a great website. She has a great store. If you're ever looking for good quality herbal products, it's called Sage. Um, what's it called? Um, oh, geez, sorry. Mountain Rose Herbs. Look her up or just look up Rosemary Gladstar. She's got great books. She's a great teacher. She's really sweet. Um, and she started this, I think, 30 or 40 years ago. And it's really kind of magical, you know. And this is at the entrance there. You can see someone's built this. Apparently it lights up at night. And again, I was really into the mushrooms. Sorry, I didn't get as many. I had pictures of plants, but I'm showing the mushrooms. This is chaga growing on a birch tree, and it's dark like this, and it looks like a cancer on the tree. And this is what we call the doctrine of signatures, because in the old days, the really old days, older than my time, at least, the ancients would see that growing on the tree, and they'd say, "This tree has cancer, and look, our mother has this growing on her arm, looks just like it. I wonder if this would treat it." And so this is how many of the herbs first got their uses, is just from observations and trial and error over thousands of years, millennia. And and humans, just because people were ancient and didn't have technology or iPhones doesn't mean they were dumb. I think people have always been really smart. And they had more time because they weren't on TikTok. So that's how they learned how to do these things. Here's another tree that has all of this is a birch tree. It has all these are called birch polypores. Um, Here's another birch polypore with a slug on it. Slugs are big out there because it's so moist. And I didn't identify these mushrooms, but I didn't eat them. Something else did. Um, Ah, I'm sorry, it keeps showing up on my thing, getting in my way. But I'm glad seeing people coming in. Welcome, welcome. There will be recordings, so you can catch up on all of this later. But like I said, it was really magical. These gardens were planted 30 and 40 years ago, and um, and they had really cool things like a this sign, tongues and trees, sermons and stones, books and running brooks. And this is a quote from Shakespeare. And here we see more mushrooms, and this little obelisk says, "May peace prevail on earth." And here's another one of those fairy castles. It was really, really cool, really cool. Here's the vets, and this woman 30 years ago helped Rosemary plant all those plants. So, and she was giving us a walk around and showing us what all the plants were. And there was one, and she was telling us also about the ants, how the ants would carry aphids into certain plants. So they would feed on it, then they would eat the aphids. And she was telling us how smart ants are. Lady's slipper. This is a type of mushroom called witch's butter. Here's a little cat. They had some rescue cats there. I sent them some of my functional feline and my krill products for them to use for the cats there. These are the vets all listening and learning and taking notes. And then here we are at the entrance again. These are all of us. I'm somewhere. There I am. I'm there. Um, and it was a great group. Some of these people I've known 20 and 30 years, and we just get together for these meetings. And a good time was had by all. And thanks for letting me share. So the next part is fixing food for Ollie. And Ollie is my rescue dog. He was found at 4 months of age with a broken leg and a dislocated hip on that same side. He was in a kill shelter, and some good Samaritan in a town south of Houston, Texas, went into this kill shelter. A kill shelter means there's no veterinarian to give them pain medications, and I'm sure he was in a lot of pain. And I think that he probably got injured that way from human abuse and then was dumped somewhere to die. And he got found and taken to the shelter, and he was slated to be killed. And this Good Samaritan found him and called a lab rescue in Golden, Colorado, Safe Harbor Lab Rescue. And they have a pilot who went down and brought him and several other labs back. And then I saw him in their newsletter. My previous rescue lab, who was a 90-pound Chocolate, who had glaucoma and lost one eye and then lost the second eye when I had him. So I was a seeing eye person. He had passed away from a pulmonary carcinoma. So I had recycled my emotions after losing him, and I started looking through newsletter. Found Ollie was just he's cuter and shit. I tell you, he's just a cute little guy. And even now he's that cute. So so I like the rescue dogs because that gives I'm a caregiver. I like to do that with them. And so he's always limped. But he's been pretty well now and he's also a little bit nervous about being around me. He's got this PTSD, but he's a foodie. So, it's hard for me not to spoil him and give him a little food here, a little extra food there. I've always given him homemade food, but he's tended to put a little weight on. And because he really has one bad hip and one no hip at all, as the weight got worse, his mobility got worse. And now he's 11, it's even worse. And so he's on a starvation diet. I'm not a real starvation diet. I've got it under control, but I've got to get his weight down because it's either that or put him down. And I don't want to do that. And I don't think he'd adapt to a wheelchair, but we'll try it. I've got some slings for him if he needs it. But so far, he's managed to get up okay. So that's where I need to make sure that I feed him portion control, the right number of calories so that I don't put weight on him and in fact get him to lose weight. And it's not just about the food. Even though he can't run, and that's also the inactivity that puts the weight on him. I take him for walks every day. He has a favorite place where he likes to pee on the neighbor's dog's fence and has a good time. So this is from last month's, and this is the worksheet. And the first thing is determine the nutrient profile and the number of calories for your pet that they need for their individual situation. So what I'm telling you about Ollie is not going to fit for your dog. Your dog has to have an individual workup. And then once you do that, what food ingredients do you want to source? Is your animal allergic? What is locally available to you? Maybe you have a garden, maybe you have a farm, maybe you have access to farm animals or access to a butcher or whatever the situation is that fits your budget, and is the best quality that you can manage. It'd be great if we could all do the gold Cadillac trip, with food, but we have to be realistic, and especially these days as prices are getting higher, we need to do the best we can. Whatever we feed, even if it's not organic, and I don't feed him all, lots of organic stuff, it's still a heck of a lot better than the processed kibble for sure. So you're still doing better. So you want to figure out what the food ingredients are, what the calories are, what the nutrient profile before you even get started. And then I'll show you how how it's how we then combine the ingredients into a blended consistency. I've got pictures. I want to do a video, but I didn't have time, and I don't really know how to edit videos. And then once you have a diet set that the animal likes that you can prepare, you can figure out how to batch prepare it and freeze it in individual serving portions. So it doesn't have to be a chore every day. And maybe you're not going to feed this every day. Maybe other days you might feed crappy kibble because it's easy to do, and I do that too. I'm guilty of that. Not a lot, but from time to time, it makes things easier in terms of our busy lives. And you could maybe do some of the commercial foods like we offer on our website, and there's lots of choices out there. So so first determine the calories that are needed per day. So we check his BCS, that's his body condition score. We talked about that in a previous month. So check those slides and that video out because we've got slides that have charts on how to do BCS. And we want to have the BCS to be ideally a 4, 5 at the highest. He's a 7, his body weight's 83 pounds. And, I think he should be, I think he'd be lean and mean, which is good for him, would be good for him at 65. I'll take 70. So I want to feed him to be 65 pounds. I want to give him those many calories, not enough for 83 pounds because he'll stay at 83 pounds. So, and he's an inactive older dog. If he was active, it would be a lot easier to take weight off of him. And when he was younger, he didn't have this weight problem because he was active, even with his limping. So we take the 65-pound weight, we divide it by 2.2, so we get a kilogram value because that's what I have in my formula, and that's in previous. previous slides as well that we've in previous months. And then we multiply 30 times the 30 kgs, and then we add 70 to it. And this gives you about how many, oh, this is meant to be calories. How, this is about how many calories per day, total food intake, and this includes supplements and treats. So because treats make his heart warm, and because supplements do have calories, and I'll show you how that works, giving him even less. So I've been, giving him much less than that to account for everything else. And I'll show you the calculations shortly. Um, so, nutrient profile generally higher protein, less likely to be turned into fat, more likely to be used for activity, higher vegetables, they've got lower calories, more fiber, more filler. I like that. Back in the old days, I used to tell people, well, take a cup of kibble out and put a can of green beans in instead, and that worked too. I mean, there's lots of ways of doing this. Um, and then you want to have lower carbs, maybe no carbs. Carbs are, they say nutritionally carbs aren't really needed by the dog, but some carbs are comfort food. Some carbs, sometimes the dog won't eat just vegetables and meat. It depends on how that works out for your dog and which meat you use and how many calories that it needs. Very individual. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to feed 60% of this 970 kilocalories per day to accelerate his weight loss and also to account for treats and the supplements. And take him for more walks, but don't overdo it. If your dog is inactive because it has injuries, it has hip dysplasia, it's got this or that problem, they might want to be more active than is good for them. So, control those walks, maybe leash walks, because if they get injured, then they're not going to be able to go on the walks as much, and then you're stuck with them being very inactive. So you need to be kind of mindful about your dog's condition and how strenuous the walks will be. Okay, so and then food choices, and commercial kibble and can, that's a choice. And there was a time I was feeding Ollie a commercial weight loss kibble that had very precise calories to it, and a commercial weight loss can because I had perfect portion control. And it's a lot easier if I'm leaving and having someone else feed him as well. Sometimes you need to compromise. Life is made up of compromises. You could also use some of the commercial raw or gently cooked or dehydrated, like we have on our website, or of which there are many other choices out there now, which is great. There weren't those many when I got started. So it's good. There's lots of good choices. Or you could do a whole prepared meal, or you could do a blending of each of those, but just remember that each of those needs to have the same portion control in terms of the number of calories. So Ollie, I found out, likes beef. We used to feed him ground turkey. Ground turkey is more readily available, a little bit less expensive, slightly lower calories. But I engaged an animal communicator to chat with him about some things, and he said, "Feed me steak." Well, and so I said, "Well, I'm not going to feed you steak, dude." Although, so he's getting hamburger, and I'm using the 80/20. It's probably better for weight loss to do the 93/7/20, whatever, to use a more lean beef, but that's also more expensive. So you feed them less, but they still get it. And I buy it in 3 pound chubs, usually at my Kroger's, and oftentimes the supermarkets will have deals. Maybe they're soon going to outdate, but they're still good. And we have a chest freezer at home, so I'll stock up on a few of these 3 pound chubs and freeze them because they'll keep forever that way. Well, not forever, but a long time. And so look for those sales. Maybe Costco, I understand, is a great source. I haven't really tapped Costco yet, but that's certainly a choice. And so yeah, like I said, ground beef, lower fat level, better, but beef's expensive, so I'm using that. I buy those. Oh, I guess I repeated myself. And I really like brown rice, mainly because I eat it myself. And dogs, if you have noticed, don't chew. So you want to wet cook it so it's more digested versus coming out in the stool. No al dente for these guys. Um, so generally, depending on your altitude, you can go a cup of rice for as much as 2 cups of water. Now I'm at, mile high, so water boils at a lower temperature, so we need to add more water to get it cooked long enough to be soft. Um, but I think keeping it moister is really a better idea. And actually there's, if you've heard about rice water, this is to treat diarrhea. We use maybe like a half a cup of rice and several cups of water, like maybe one, like 1 cup to maybe 4 to 6 cups of water becomes a rice porridge. And there's proteins in that rice, or which which actually affect the ability of the body's of the intestines to reabsorb water. And so that's used a lot in the World Health Organization suggests its use for diarrhea in developing nations. And in China, they have something called congee, which is very similar, not quite as dilute as rice water. And then vegetables. Ideally, the meal would be meat and mostly vegetables with little or no rice or any other carb source. But sometimes the animal is not as willing to eat it that way. So even a little bit of carbs can maybe flavor it. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Well, I don't really recommend the sugar part aspect of it. Okay, and moving well. So, like I say, so you want eat the veggies alone. So I use the rice, but make sure the rice plus beef plus veggies equals 970 calories times zero point 0.6. So that's about 600 calories, and that gives me room, to add other stuff and not worry about it. I could spoil him, but not put weight on. And like I said, he's picky. It's funny when I'm cutting up veggies for ourselves. He loves the asparagus ends. He likes the bok choy. He likes cabbage and broccoli. Um, but not so much, I could overdo it. Like I used to put a lot more broccoli in his food, and there'd always be broccoli left. Now later that night he might go back and eat it because he's a foodie, um, and maybe that's okay. So, higher protein and fiber combined with exercise are the key to weight loss. Um, Veggies can provide fiber, and there's other sources of fiber like oat bran, flaxseed meal, chia seed. Flaxseed meal does, though, have higher calories because of the oils in it, but it is good fiber, very good fiber. Chia seed is kind of a new concept, and it's kind of cool. You can kind of soak it in water first, like a pudding. But you need to check the calorie content. And these days, by law, packaged food has to have the calories on it, and it has what the serving size is. So you need to use a little math, be mindful of it, and you can figure out how many calories that will add to the food to meet your goal, or whether it's weight loss or weight gain or whatever it might be. You could try the USDA in terms of finding out how many calories are in the food. Like I say, they all contain labels. The USDA nutrient database is online, it's free, but it's gotten more complicated to navigate than it used to be. Google, hey, Google can work, and Google AI works even better. So it's worth a try. Maybe you're into AI and have your own, AI agent that you use. It really is a coming thing. I was very skeptical, but I've been using it and enjoying it. But I know it's kind of weird and kind of futuristic and a little scary, but it saves me a lot of time and it works a lot. Works, it's very accurate. And I use Claude, that's Anthropic's agent, and I call him a him, but it's an it. And so, and I did a little. I just asked him to do that earlier, and I'll show you what he came up with. It's really freaking amazing. Um, Here we go. Let's go then. Yeah, so here it is. I go, Claude, could you calculate the calories I'm feeding Ollie each meal with 4 ounces of raw ground beef, 4 ounces? And I had to first come up with that. I kind of did a rough, crude estimate myself, and then wanted to have him check whether I had the amounts right. 4 ounces of raw ground beef, 80/20, 4 ounces wet cooked brown rice, 8 ounces of raw broccoli. I add this one tablespoon of fish oil, 3 tablespoons of flaxseed meal, 4 drops of vitamin D, 2 teaspoons of daily dog, and 2 teaspoons of lion's mane with krill meal. These last two products are products I formulated, and I can upload their formulas or they have been published online. And so there's a lot of talking back and forth. It wasn't just like, here it is. But what he came up with is I'm still within my target, 756 kilocalories with that meal. And I feed him this once a day. Now, the feeding a dog once a day is really called intermittent fasting. And it has been shown not only can it contribute to weight loss, but there also is some evidence. And Claude said, the evidence isn't really as good as you're saying, but there is pretty good evidence still that it keeps me honest. There's still some pretty good evidence that it also can contribute to longevity. It's a longevity strategy because when the body thinks it's being starved, you need to like not eat for like 12 to 13 hours a day. It mobilizes certain enzymes that contribute to fat burning so the body can have energy. So it's a cool strategy. It's something people do as well. So, and also in terms of cancer and other types of diseases. So feeding once a day, they want twice a day. So maybe for the second meal, and I feed them just at night. But and so maybe for the second meal, just give a couple of treats as long as you're keeping below the total amount of calories you need to feed. And I also feed my cats, well, not the current batch of cats, but the previous batch of cats. I used to feed them at night so that because the previous batch of cats went outside, the new batch of cats doesn't, so that they would come back in to eat. Because leaving cats can be outside, depending on your neighborhood, can be dangerous for them to be outside. But the most dangerous is if they're out overnight. And some cats like that, but if food's involved, they'll come back in for food, then you keep them in at the nighttime. Okay, so just showing you some pictures. I just was at the Kroger's today, and they've got these deals. So beef is hot, beef is getting high. It's a bummer, but this is the best I could find. I buy this 3 pound chub. I keep it in the freezer. Here you can see the remnants of a chub that I thawed it out and I scooped. We have found these little glass containers, and I use a kitchen scale, and each one contains 4 ounces exactly of ground beef. So there's no guesswork. It's portion control. I just found this new Bird's Eye California blend that has broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots. Pretty much, I've been using these broccoli florets from Kroger, 52 ounces. It's the least expensive. I keep it in the freezer, and then I'll fill a 2 ounce um, uh, 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 losing it here of a 2 ounce measuring cup with the florets, and then I use boiling hot water to thaw them out. I take a sieve and I chop them up really finely like that. Um, so they're one, they thaw out better, and two, they're more digestible and he's more likely to eat them. And then, these are some of the ingredients that we're going to put together. Here we have the 4 ounces of ground beef here. And what I do is I put these in the freezer, and so I bring out two to put in the refrigerator, and I thaw out. And so I always bring out another one. When I use one, I then bring another one so it thaws out in the refrigerator overnight. In terms of food hygiene, it's best to thaw them in a refrigerator than thawing them at room temperature because it's likely at room temperature they'll get warm enough to promote bacterial growth if there were bacteria in it, and there probably were. So this reduces the risk of food-borne pathogens, and the reason why we hear so much pushback for raw diets from veterinarians, and especially from the food companies that are losing money because people aren't buying kibble. So this is 4 ounces of some wet cooked brown rice. These are the chopped up little broccoli things. We sell this in this is one product I designed. It's got a calcium magnesium blend, so I use that as my calcium source because if you're not, you need to add calcium to balance the higher phosphorus in the meat. And then I think the ground flaxseed, I'm a big proponent of ground flaxseed. It's got great fiber in it. It's got great omega-3s. It's got these things called plant lignans that bind up toxins. And I use about a teaspoon per 15 pounds. Ollie, and I got this in my notes and everything. Ollie gets 3 tablespoons, which contributes substantially to the calories that he gets, which is why Claude was, figuring that out for me. But it's great. Also helps keep them regular. And then I'll show you the other supplements I give in the background here. Oh, and then so here's Ollie. This is, and yeah, good health is great in your pets, but this is really the payoff. I mean, look at this guy. He's a happy guy, and he's so cute, even at 11. And this was a video, but I don't know how to make the videos work. I haven't figured that out yet. that shows you how he kind of limps, which is kind of sad. But he manages, he probably does better than he looks like he does. And then this is what I give him. He gets a shot of silver bullet. I give him vitamin D, but I base that on some measurements in his blood of his vitamin D levels. It's most important that you do that to make sure you give good levels. I give him collagen because I think it helps his musculoskeletal um, structure. He's got that false joint in one hip, and I think the collagen's good, so I share with him what I use. He gets the real mushrooms, lion's mane with krill. He gets the real mushrooms, daily dog. And I don't know if you've heard about teef or not, TEEF, but this is a specially designed probiotic, prebiotic that feeds the microbiome in the mouth and helps to prevent gingivitis and biofilm. And then I also actually also give them a seaweed extract, although there's seaweed, the daily dog, and seaweed also breaks down the biofilm in the mouth. So it helps to reduce dental disease, although if you can brush your pet's teeth, that's really good. And it is a good idea to take them into the vet on a regular basis and make sure they get their teeth clean. Even though it can be expensive, it's better to be preventative as you can. And once they get their teeth clean, which is expensive, you're probably going to be, it'll probably be an inducement to be even more preventative. Um, but anyway, so that's what we give them. We ran out of Ultra EFA, which is also on our website. I also designed this as a really good fish oil with lecithin in them. The lecithin is a great way to help increase the absorption of the fish oil. And then their nutritional support, which is really a green food. It's the first product I ever designed, and it still works great. It's got a bunch of different herbs and nutrients and micronutrients and whole food extracts in it, and it's really tasty and it really helps the hair coat look shinier. And so here you can see I'm kind of chopping it up. I've got all these things together. And here you can see I'm kind of curating the bowl. I feed them in this stainless steel bowl. Here's the broccoli, which is all kind of souped up. And so it turns out to be kind of a soup here. I blend it up and you can see it looks like this. And I know a lot of people advocate these mats and these dry foods. That's okay. But the dog aging study showed that one of the hallmarks of aging for a dog is dehydration. And I think one reason that they found that is because dogs eat so much dry food. So many dogs that were in that study were on dry food. So, and even a lot of these curating the bowls are just feeding like a chicken wing here and a piece of broccoli there, and they're just depending on the dog to drink. When you make it like a soup like this, they drink, they get hydrated, and I think it's really, and so this is my approach to that. And there's different approaches. I'm not saying that it's the only way to do it, but it's my way. So and then I don't know if I can get the video to work or not. Um, I've got to figure out how to do that. I think probably I had to be in presentation mode to do that. But boy, I make him sit here. He's kind of looking anxious because I make him sit, wait, wait, wait. Then I put it down and I go release. Then he chomps down on it like you're seeing here. And then I just want to show you the proof, the pudding, the empty bowl. So that's it as far as Ollie's diet. We've got a lot of great resources, that we carry. Many of the things I've shown you here. Check them out. This is information about these diets we have, um, Evermore and Chi Dog and Chi Cat and Raised Right. These are all good. And then for making your home prepared meals, we do have supplies. We've got minerals, nutritional support. We've got the EFA. We don't sell flaxseed meal. That's pretty good. You can get that almost anywhere. So we're doing bundles now to make things a little more cost effective. We can, put together daily dog with maybe lion's mane if you've got an anxious pet, or turkey tail if your pet has cancer or some other disease, or pet defenders, just a general wellness tonic, or cat likewise. And cats are taken to the krill pet powder, so that's a good deal. And again, more of the healthy diets that we can be delivered to your door that you can get from our website, and just more stuff. And I won't go into that, but the information's there if you're interested. And now, the moment that you waited for, ask me some questions.
All right, let me share this here.
Okay. How'd I do? Pretty good.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Yeah. We should
And you
stop.
did it all in what, an hour?
Well, yeah, we should stop the share so we can kind of see everybody. Can you do that? I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can do
Please
it.
do.
There's that there.
Okay, good.
All right, now we'll share the questions here.
Yeah. So hello everybody.
All right, we'll start off. Can you see this? Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Is it too big or no? All good?
That's good. That's perfect.
Okay, awesome.
hmm
And this is just a thank you, but
You're welcome. Yeah, quercetin really helps with that histamine. Combining it with the pet defenders, which has the reishi and the chaga, is good. And combining it and actually the pet defenders with krill meal, because the krill meal has the fish oil and antioxidants, even better. You're welcome. Okay. So I'm not sure why it's best to avoid chronic supplementation. I believe strongly in the daily use of the appropriate supplements. Um, can you please address situations where using therapeutic doses of single or multiple medicinal mushrooms and other herbs as part of a targeted therapy for specific diseases such as epilepsy, cancer, or arthritis? Is it best to take a weekly 1 day break to give the body a rest from them or alternate the mushrooms being utilized from week to week or month to month? Well, I think that I'm not against chronic supplementation. I think it's a good idea. I think I think after you've been on them for like a month, there's no reason why you can't stop for a day or two, give yourself a break, give your pet a break. I don't think it's going to have any kind of a glitch in the treatment. Now, if it has epilepsy or arthritis and you see them, their mobility changing or they have a seizure when you start taking that break, maybe that's an indication because there's so much. I mean, there's no one blanket rule. Each animal charts its own course. So be mindful of your own animal's needs. Talk to your vet. I'm sure they can help you. Although some vets have this, you got to take a break or you don't want to give too much or they have too much interaction between them. I don't believe that's true, honestly. I've been doing this a lot, really have seen very few problems with it. Weekly, a 1 day break, that's great. Maybe do it Monday through Friday and take the weekend off. I do that too for my own supplements sometimes, unless I've got something active going on and I really need to, give it a blast. Alternating the mushrooms, that's a possibility, unless the mushrooms are giving you a specific benefit for your specific condition. And so, but many mushrooms give the same benefits, have many of the similar benefits. But if you're using turkey tail, you might be looking at cancer. If you're looking at lion's mane, you might be looking at cognitive health. I don't think the turkey tail is going to be as good as lion's mane for cognitive health. So it is again very individual. But that's what I'm here for, is to help you with that. And that's why I'm generating all of this information and literature that you can read and doing online stuff and working with real mushrooms. Check real mushrooms out. It's a great source, and we're doing a lot of education there as well. Also, would you recommend using real mycelium along with lion's mane for epileptic dogs or those with CCD? Okay, real mycelium. So this is a very new question. Real mycelium just launched Monday. This is Thursday. Real mycelium is the brand new product by Real Mushrooms, and it's a very unique product. Nothing like it on the marketplace for neurologic health. And I think that there's a possibility that using the real mushroom along with lion's mane might be helpful for epileptic dogs or might be helpful for dogs with CCD, which is the sundowners. That's canine cognitive disorder. But we don't know. It's so new. So if you want to try it, I don't sell it on my website. It's kind of pricey. I've got some guidelines for dosing it, which are really shoot from the hip because it is so new. But what it is mushrooms have a three-part life cycle, and they start with the spores, which then germinate and ultimately into mycelium. And the mycelium is a very powerful part of the mushroom life cycle. It generates these digestive enzymes, which eat through the substrate it's growing on and helps to nourish it. And it creates these secondary metabolites that can be very powerful. The treatment of cancer with hemangiosarcoma in dogs, there was a good study using a mycelial extract from turkey tail. So this is the first mycelial extract from lion's mane to hit the market, and lion's mane is primarily for neurologic and cognitive health, although lion's mane can also be good for certain types of GI cancers. So the real mycelium comes from the mycelium as compared to coming from the mushroom. The mycelium, when environmental conditions get good, get appropriate, the mycelium then converts itself into a mushroom. The mushroom, when you cut into it, it's kind of white on the inside. That's the mycelium that's organized itself into the mushroom. So there's a lot of interest in it. You must be up on it. Maybe you're a veterinarian or not, but that's a great question. And we will go into real mycelium in greater depth um, in future months. I'm just finishing up a webinar that I'm going to be recording for veterinarians. It's a little bit technical, but I'm sure it's good for many pet parents. Pet parents 2.0, as they call them, are very citizen scientist and oriented to that. So it wouldn't be over anybody's head. I don't like to do that. So yeah, good question. Very good question. Complicated question. You are obviously quite knowledgeable. Next question. My question is in the mushroom dog caps, 300 milligrams each. What measurement is that? That's eighth of a teaspoon. So that's why I use, and that's why I comparably said eighth of a teaspoon per 10 to 20 pounds per day or twice daily, depending on the condition. And that would be of the powder or of the dog caps. And the the krill meal also has 300 milligrams in each serving size of each mushroom. So the krill meal is very comparable to the powder, to the pure powder of the mushroom, to the capsules. The krill meal has the krill pet, the mushrooms with krill pet have 700 milligrams of the krill and 300 milligrams of the mushroom extract, the same that would be the powder per serving size, which I believe is a quarter of a teaspoon. I have to look at the label. And the therapeutic dose is listed on mushroom bottles for pets. What do you dose for issues that they might be having? So the therapeutic dose, it's really more, what's on the mushroom bottles. You have to be careful, with putting dosages on bottles. And really, so we really put the lowest common denominator dosage on that for safety's sake, for liability's sake, and that really is not so much what we'd call a therapeutic dose as we would call maybe the wellness dose. Daily use can promote wellness. Therapeutic dose would be higher. So we're suggesting once daily. So when you start going twice daily, you start getting into the therapeutic area. When you do the double dose twice daily or once daily or twice daily, it starts escalating. So there's basically three tiers of dosing. One would be the wellness dose, which is what's on the bottle. The next would be the therapeutic dose, the common therapeutic dose, which would be maybe for things like cognitive disorders, seasonal allergies, maybe skin issues, things like that. And then you have the very therapeutic dose, which might be for cancer or chronic or infections that don't respond to other therapies, and that would be even higher. Mushrooms are considered to be very safe. You can really give as much as you want, as much as you can afford, as much as your pet can tolerate. But I suggest starting slow and working your way up gradually. It's a long-term therapy. Don't expect it to be like a drug. It's really something, I call it a lifestyle therapy, and it should be part of your dog's and your lifestyle as well. We found with a survey with real mushrooms that 70% of people who start buying mushrooms for their pets go on to using it for themselves as well. So it's what's good for Fido is good for you too. Next one. Our 4.5-month-old foster failed puppy allegedly had one round of vaccines at 8 weeks. She is trained to be a medical alert service dog. We live in a rural area and have raccoons and bird droppings the puppy is surrounded by. My holistic vet suggested a 701 vaccine of 4 to 5 months, but I can't find it. He's currently on medical leave. What I'm looking for to vaccinate against, our local pet store has a 1001 that includes distemper, blah, 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 blah. Plus Lyme. Okay. So the question is about vaccinations, and so and very rightfully so, you're telling me what your local risk is, and in your local, your local risk, raccoons can carry canine distemper. So we want to make sure you've got and protected for canine distemper. There's probably other dogs around, so the parvovirus, I think, is also important. I question the value of the coronavirus vaccine. I question the value of the para-influenza vaccine. Um, and the Lyme's vaccine, I'm not sure about. Leptospirosis, that might be valuable, but really needs to be given as an individual. So I personally prefer when I was giving vaccinations to 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 space them out, so that you don't give all of those at once. I think it can be confusing to the immune system, especially if you have a puppy who is sensitive, and some are, So but many vets, they just want to give all in one and make it easier. So it's a difficult question to answer because of the consideration, also because I don't want to be inappropriate medically with what I'm suggesting. So your foster failed puppy, I assume that probably the dog didn't really have good nursing for his mother, which means that it didn't receive any of the benefits of the immune system, immune protection from whatever the mother was vaccinated for or was exposed to. So I would say at the very minimum, I would start and so if it did have nursing on the mother, I generally suggest starting at 12 weeks of age with the distemper and parvovirus as kind of a bare minimum. And I would try to get as simple a vaccine as you can, maybe a 3-in-1 or a 4-in-1 as versus 7-in-1. If you live in an area where Lyme's disease is an issue, and I'm lucky enough in Colorado where it's not, but I was freaked out in Vermont about that, then I would probably look to do separate Lyme's disease vaccinations. In the meantime, I would look at doing protection from ticks. And although we don't like some of the use of these spot-on drops that are or these pills that are tick preventatives, sometimes you have to weigh the risks to the benefit of whether there is less risk for using a tick preventative than from the chronic disease that you get from Lyme's disease. Personally, the old-fashioned spot-on drop frontline, not these oral tablets that do everything, seems to be a lot more safe than these new ones. And I don't even know the names of these new products because I don't deal with it. And in Colorado, it's a very blessed place in terms of that. So we only and we don't really even have much in the way of heartworm. Recently, we've gotten rabies, and rabies is an issue. So by law, the rabies has to be given. And it sounds like raccoons, which also could be a source of rabies, as well as foxes and bats. And we've got bats and raccoons around here. Um, I would suggest having it done at 6 months of age, but I think by law they try to do it by 4 months of age. So, you know, so while the puppy is young and getting into these vaccinations, and becoming a part of your household. My suggestion is keep it inside. Do tick checks if you don't want to do a spot on drop every day, every 24 hours or sooner. Go over it with a fine tooth comb to pull the ticks off because it takes about 24 hours for them to transmit Lyme's disease. Um, get it on some mushrooms, to help improve its immune system response, both to the vaccines and also to help it with the potential exposure to some of these infectious diseases. And you can get that stuff from us online, no matter how rural you live in. Um, and that's kind of the best I can do for a question like this, where I don't really have you in front of me. I don't see the pet. I don't have all the medical records and everything else. Um, but and the thing, and you do have a holistic vet, so that's great. Um, and I'm sorry that he's on medical leave. Maybe you could reach him virtually. It's hard for vets to stop practicing. I mean, look at me, you know. So maybe there's a way you can contact him and get his advice because he knows more about you and your area and what really is our dominant risks there. So next question.
All right. This
How
one's a
many
little
are
long.
how many
Yeah,
are
but
there, by the way?
I'm sorry, how many questions?
Yeah.
There is 9 total. We're on 5.
Okay. Okay, let's get going. Okay. First, thank you for suggesting relaxed shoes and silver bullet to calm my bug for his nail trimmings. Yeah, I corresponded with this woman. Um, so yeah, and this is what I'm saying too about July 4th as well. It's a good mixture. And we have relaxed shoes on board. We have silver bullet. We also have we're just coming back into stock with our Silver Dog Forte chews that have mushrooms in them and CBD and a very high potent, which could be combined with the relaxed chews instead of using the tinctures. It worked. I'm so grateful. His nails are not close where they should be. Our 12-year-old pup, and I thought I answered this one. It's an impacted anal gland. He's been having his glands expressed without a problem, due to the fact he's never been able to express them on his own. This time, one was not able to express his so the fluid was probably too hard and sticky and not liquid enough, and therefore it needed to be flushed out. He does go to a holistic vet who tried to flush it, but was unsuccessful. Not sure what caused this, but would like to remedy this without surgery, which his vet is suggesting to have his anal glands removed and anesthesia if possible. I have been using calendula compresses and silica homeopathic from one from Rita Hogan, one from Julie, both excellent experts, neither vets, but very knowledgeable, and I love them both. So yeah, this is a tough problem. I would say that, that the flushing is something that I would try again, and maybe you have to sedate the dog. And depends what the vet's using to flush it. I used to use the same kind of ceruminolytic, which is like an earwax solvent. I would use that in the anal glands as well, if you can get in there. But there are times when that gets to the point that it doesn't work. We'd like to do it naturally, but maybe you can't. And one of the issues with dogs that have anal gland problems is if they're chronic enough, they can wind up converting into anal gland cancers, which are also pretty nasty. Now, one thing that I know about anal glands and ear problems and interdigital stuff and skin things is oftentimes it's related to food allergies. And so there may be a root source to the anal gland problems. And maybe you're going to have to remove it. Hopefully, maybe he can get it flushed out, try a few times, maybe instill it with stuff and then come back the next day. I mean, there's all different ways of doing that. And sometimes just keep trying. Um, and the vet may be right. I mean, the vet could be right. Vets are, oftentimes right. I'm not disagreeing with him. So, but you might want to look at doing like a food allergy testing, and you can go and I guess I thought I answered your question, but and might have suggested that then. But we can get back on email, and I'll give you some details on that as well. And that may help to reduce it from reoccurring. Once you can get it fixed, if you can get it fixed. And yes, it is extreme to do that, but it also solves the problem. And if the surgery is done correctly, it's fine. There are possible, problems with the surgery in terms of anal loss of incontinence back there. Um, so it needs to be done very carefully. So yeah, try again and again. Look at diet. And continue with your calendric compresses. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, and maybe you'll be able to get it to work better. Thank you. Next. Not only does our 5-year-old golden male golden have anxiety, stress, even though fed natural diet with herbs, supplements, nothing processed, and organic veggie fruit, he's over the top when it comes to storms, barks non-stop. I've tried lick mats, exercise before and after, thunder shirt, taking him to the basement to play, go find it as distraction, playing music, tiring me out prior, now trying from our holistic vet other herbs. He's prone to seizures, so trying to have storms not be such a trigger for these. Any suggestions or advice would be very much appreciated. So grateful. Well, I think I've already addressed that, but not all dogs will respond to all these things, and maybe you need to, maybe try a few more things. I don't know if you've tried my relaxed chews and my CBD products. You've got a holistic vet, so I'm sure you've got someone as knowledgeable, maybe even more knowledgeable than me. Believe it or not, there's many out there who are. Um, the prone to seizures part, is he on seizure medication? And seizure medication can be sedative and helpful. As I mentioned, seizures can also contribute to behavioral issues, and the anxiety could be part of that. I'm sorry that you had this problem. You're doing everything right, don't blame yourself, but sometimes problems are not that easy to solve. And obviously that's why you come in here to me, because you're not solving it, even with probably a great holistic vet. So, but a lot of the advice I gave today is good. All right, so let's see. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the new Pure Lion's Mane mycelium we saw advertised recently? Specifically, should Bruce Wayne, who has T-zone lymphoma, is currently getting daily Helboris injections, switch from the regular real mushrooms lion's mane powder to this new powder? I give him the regular lion's mane powder once daily to combat the mild focal seizures he was having, which seem to be working. Thank you. Okay, and this is Misha and Bruce Wayne, who we were very familiar with. And um, so okay, here's the deal. The new mycelial product is really not meant to be given as a standalone. It works best when given with the real mushrooms lion's mane powder. And as I answered in a previous question, we're not really sure. There aren't the research for lion's mane mycelium is mostly around cognitive function and hearing loss. So it's so new to have a product like this where it's just in its infancy, but trying it and seeing what happens when you try it is one way that we're going to learn more about how to use it. If you can afford the cost of it and want to give it a try, I would say absolutely. It's not going to have that much of an effect on the cancer. It's not that kind of a direction, but it could be helpful with the focal seizures, just as I mentioned with the epilepsy, just because it has we call it a neuroadaptogen, which means that it helps to improve the health of brain tissue. And who knows, exactly why he has those focal seizures. Maybe it's something that we could help him with. So reach out to me individually. Let me help you with dosing. And I'm all for trying it. But I really want you to give me feedback. We need to learn more about it so we can share it with other people so they can also use it. Thanks for the question. Apologies for the unusual question. Hey, they're used to them. But my dog and I need help. She is nearly a 10-year-old German Shepherd dog adopted 2 years ago with mid-length fur. Brushed daily with rubber tip bristle brush, and it is inadequate for the mats which form on her thighs. A comb doesn't work. Any suggestion would be appreciated. Okay. So this says to me that the thighs they're rubbing together, and so the hair is matting up because of that rubbing action on it, and it's rubbing up because it doesn't have kind of enough slipperiness to it because there's many longer haired dogs with hair on the inside of their thighs that don't get those mats. So this tells me that there may be something going on with fat metabolism in the body or with needing to have more fatty acids, that might help to regulate the fatty acids in the skin. And it may be that the skin itself needs to be better hydrated. Remember, I mentioned about hydration as being a serious problem that many dogs have. So diet could be an issue, okay? Mushrooms could be used like tremella, which can help with the skin. Maybe looking at our krill meal pet products as well, or looking at krill meal in general, or looking at our Ultra EFA as a fatty acid and the flax seed meal. I don't know anything about the diet. Sounds like you're a good pet parent and trying hard. And on German Shepherd dogs, especially adopting one at 8 years of age, God bless you. Um, and so I can, if you want to reach out to me by email, and please understand I get a lot of questions, so be patient. I'll do my best. Maybe we can work something out or figure out what we can do that might help improve the quality of the skin and hair coat so these mats don't form. In the meantime, one suggestion would be to shave them, so they don't keep forming while you're working on improving the general quality of her diet and her hair coat. So that's what we do. We've got Maine Coons, and they're even on good diets. They still get these mats, and they don't really appreciate the brushing. And so every once in a while, the one cat's fine. The other one, we actually have to give a little gabapentin and I have compounded for her to settle her down. She's even a handful then, and then we try to clip the mats as best we can with the type of clippers that vet clippers that don't cut the skin, but cut the mats. So it's a problem, and maybe we can solve it, but maybe not. Not an unusual question. I am soon adopting two 12-week-old kittens and would like to know what you suggest is the best way to start them out on a raw diet and how to use Pet Defenders mushrooms for them. They will likely be vaxxed as I will be adopting from a local shelter. Yeah, and I understand that. And vaccinations aren't bad, and they're probably already vaccinated because they usually give them the vaccinations as soon as they enter the shelter. But yeah, this is the very best time to get them started, not just for their immune system and for vaccine competence, but also to help develop a healthy microbiome. And so I developed the functional feline product, which has krill meal as a base, but also has like 13 other ingredients in it, including active probiotic cultures, 8 different mushrooms, adaptogens, detoxicants, specifically as a way of helping. And I specifically meant it to be given to young kittens as kind of the first thing they get started on to help improve their health. Now, Pet Defenders, that's a great choice, but the Pet Defenders are already in the functional feline, along with three other mushrooms: golden oyster, cordyceps, and lion's mane. So it's a good place to begin. It's an all-in-one. You can buy a single container of it. It's very palatable, and you can start them each on that. And then, of course, the diet is also important. And I would say no dry food. Did I say that loud enough? No dry food. Dry food is absolutely wrong for cats. It's primarily carbohydrates. It's ultra processed, wrong thing to feed a cat, because they're obligate carnivores. They do not do carbs. I've seen cats develop type 2 diabetes that we were able to convert by getting them off the carbs. So I would look at, some of the gently cooked diets or raw diets. Some of the stuff we have online would give you an example of what I recommend, and certainly you could look at that. We're feeding our Maine Coons mainly the goodness gracious rabbit, and they love it. So I don't, so that those would be my suggestions for you as kind of a very simple way to go. Good, good, a good, not processed diet, minimally processed diet, and the functional feline.
So that's all we have.
Wow. What about chat? Any questions there?
Yes, it
And
looks like
we're only at 7:30. I mean, I did pretty well.
I think yes, there is one in the chat here. I could read it out to you if that works.
That works.
Sure. Can you explain the use of THC in some CBD products? Why is it used and how can it be helpful? I understand there is no LD for this, although it can create toxic effects. I use a THC product for my epileptic dog, and it seems to noticeably help her anxiety and reactivity.
Well, that's a good question, and it's a bit of a controversy. THC can stimulate epileptic seizures in some animals and in some people, and certainly can stimulate panic attacks and things like that. But there also were some we also the original use of CBD that had THC in it. We call that full spectrum. Now, you say it's a THC product. I'm assuming you mean a hemp product that's full spectrum that has the legal limit to THC, which is 0.3%, on a dry matter basis, unless you're talking about one that has even more THC in it. I would be nervous about it, but obviously it seems to be working for you, so I'm not going to tell you not to do it. So, I think that the problem is with THC in dogs is that they have an excessive number of receptors for THC in their brain, more than any other animal on this planet, period. In fact, when they originally were capturing smuggled shipments of marijuana, they'd feed it to a dog. And if the dog had this very specific ataxia reaction, which is a kind of a pretty negative neurologic reaction, they had enough evidence they could convict in court. This is why my CBD products don't have any THC in them. And certainly, if you're an athlete or if your animal is a performance animal and you have a hemp product with THC in it, they'll still test positive on performance drug, testing. But if it's working for you, if you think it's really controlling those seizures and you're seeing benefit to it, hey, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So the whole issue with full spectrum is that you're getting the whole plant. And we know that the whole plant, all the different ingredients in the plant have a synergy. The more and that the synergy amongst all these ingredients is better than any one single isolated ingredient. But in the old days when we used to take the THC out of the plant, and I worked for many years for one of the largest hemp companies and early back in the 2015 in Colorado. Some of the early processes to remove the THC also removed other valuable parts of the plant. These days, they're breeding down the THC in these hemp plants, and they've got better ways of extracting the THC from it, which doesn't remove the other goodies in the plant. So that's why I have this broad spectrum as compared to the full spectrum. And Japan doesn't allow any THC products there at all. And there's some good studies now coming out of Japan in pets for anxiety and epilepsy that show that these non-THC products also will produce positive benefits, studied objectively. So I think it's very individual, and and again, if it's working for you, more power to you. I hope that helps. Is that it?
Yep.
Cool. Well, everybody, thank you. It's been a great night. I've enjoyed myself. I hope you haven't minded my spouting all this stuff, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm kind of loosening up finally and kind of getting into the swing of things. Looking forward to having some dinner. It's 7:30 for me. And next month, we're going to talk about the microbiome. Sounds like we should talk about real mycelium as well. So we'll do a little bit of each. And and certainly send us your questions, your comments, whatever you want to send us. Send us chocolate. That's always good. Love y'all.